Rabbits make fantastic pets, but contrary to popular belief, they are not the easy pet that they're made out to be, and sometimes they're not the best pet for young children. So if you're introducing a new rabbit to your home, I thought I'd just do a quick little video and try and advise you on all the things that you might need to think about. I'm going to talk about all of those special needs that rabbits actually have. So that's going to include things like housing, handling, food, exercise, and specific health care that's specific for just rabbits. So listen on up to hear all those tips I've got about rabbit care. If this is the first time watching our channel, hi, I'm Dr. Lee. I'm a veterinarian and the owner of Your Vet Online. Your Vet Online provides online veterinary advice 24/7, no appointments necessary, doesn't matter what kind of animal you've got. So we can help you at any time, 24/7, no appointments are necessary. Head on over to our website, yourvetonline.com, and our vets will be more than happy to help you. So first things first, rabbits live a really long time, can be up to 10 years or over that amount. So if you're going to get a rabbit, you've really got to weigh up whether you have the ability to have that long time commitment. Not everyone does. One of the most important things about owning a rabbit is that they're really, really social. And that means they shouldn't probably be kept alone. Ideally, you would try to bond a pair of rabbits such as two desexed females or a desexed male and a desexed female. You definitely don't want to be trying to bond undesexed animals or those rabbits that haven't been desexed, because next thing you know, you've got a lot of rabbits on your hands. We don't usually combine two males. Rabbits tend to be quite territorial, whether they're male or female, but two males are often worse and they will fight. Also, sometimes if you get the rabbits really young, the whole bonding process isn't quite as difficult. You just put them together and they're usually fine. And that sort of is good if they're under that sort of 12 weeks of age range. So we recommend desexing your rabbits between the ages of 10 to 16 weeks. And you'll need to keep them separate. Now, if it's a male that you've desexed, you will have to keep them separate for about 6 weeks from females, because they are still able to impregnate females even though they have been, even though their testicles have actually been removed. Okay, the whole bonding process really does need to occur quite slowly. We want to keep them in each rabbit in their separate home, in their separate area, but you want to make sure that they can see each other and they can hopefully smell each other. Now, you can aid with this whole process by giving them blankets and then swapping the blankets into each sort of caged area, and that can help with transferring that smell. You might even get their kitty litter boxes that they'll use to soil in. You can put those in each side of their area that you're going to keep them. And what that does, it helps to familiarize each rabbit for the smells and scents and everything of each other without them actually coming into close contact. And then what ideally I do is I actually get some mesh and I put that in between rabbit A and rabbit B. So that basically they can go nose to the mesh, but they're not actually able to get in there and fight each other. So they can have nose to nose contact and they can familiarize themselves with each other, get used to each other. They both have their own food on each side and their toys. There's no competition for anything. And so they kind of just like learn to chill with each other there. Now that process you might keep them like that for a good week or so, and that allows them to get quite used to each other. So then when it's time to actually introduce them, what I recommend is you do that in a really neutral territory. So it might be just in the backyard, or it might be somewhere like the lounge room where they haven't actually been kept as, that's not where their home is, if you know what I mean. So during that period of time, what you're doing is you put them together with their own little, you put one rabbit on one side with their own little litter tray and some food and stuff and some toys, put the other rabbit in another area, and then you just watch. And you watch them come together, because they probably will. And if they show signs of a bit of fisticuffs, then, or a little bit of tension, like they're giving each other the eye and it ain't looking so good, then you just move them away from each other and you put them back in their homes where they would normally be, with the partition down the middle. Now, you keep at that process for quite some time sometimes, so it really depends on the rabbits. Sometimes they just decide they love each other. Next minute they're grooming each other, they're hanging out, they're playing, there's no issues whatsoever. That's the best situation that can happen. Unfortunately, that doesn't always happen. So when things don't go well, this process might take a lot longer. But don't give up, because sometimes these rabbits just need a little bit more time. So it might be 5 minutes together at one stage, separate, another night it's another 5 minutes, and you just keep building up that time. But remembering, if they're showing signs of not liking each other, you do have to separate them. And the thing is that sometimes some rabbits just never bond or pair up. And in those situations, no amount of training or pairing and bonding and love and whatever else you want to do is actually going to improve things. And it might be a case that you just have to accept that these rabbits can't actually live together, because remember, they are likely to have really bad fights. They've got really strong back legs, and they can do some nasty damage, like ripping out through their, abdominal area if they get in a fight together, and you just don't want that to happen. It's also worthwhile remembering that bonded rabbits actually bond for life, and it's wise not to then separate them. So if you need to go somewhere, it's best to take them both. So if you're taking one to the vet, take them both to the vet. And that can be kind of frustrating and hard to deal with. But sometimes what we find, and this isn't a rule that's absolute, but sometimes we find that if one of the rabbits has been sick and has been to the vet clinic, or for some reason it's stayed somewhere else and then they've had to go home, the other rabbit might not like them anymore. And you might have to start that whole bonding process again. I actually don't know why this occurs. It's kind of annoying. Okay, what kind of housing do you keep rabbits in? Rabbits can be kept indoors and they can be kept outdoors, or they can have a little bit of both. But it's always a good idea for them to have their own area, whether that's inside or outside. So if we talk about outside hutches to start with, one of the biggest things that I find is a massive problem is that people just don't provide enough space for their little bunny. You're actually going to have 2 rabbits, hopefully. So you need to have a decent size hutch, and the recommendation is to have one that is 3 meters long by 1.5 meters wide and 1 meter high. Now, the reason for that is you've got to give enough space for them to be able to lie, stretch right out. You want them to be able to hop around, have a bit of a play area, have an area where they'll, do their toileting and can have that area, and another area where they might do their digging. So it's really important that you give them some decent size. And that is even regardless of whether you take them out and give them exercise every day or not. They do need to have that much space. We've also got to remember they've got to have an enclosed part to their hutch area. And it needs to be, and this whole area needs to be in a place that's rain proof or sheltered from the rain, sheltered from the wind, sheltered from the heat. We don't want areas, you to put a hutch in an area that is going to absolutely have the sun beating down on it, because your rabbits are and will get affected by heat stress. So be very careful where you put your rabbit's enclosure. It's also a really good idea to make sure that the outside of that enclosure is mosquito proof, because remember, there's some really nasty diseases like myxomycosis and rabbit hemorrhagic disease that is actually transmitted by mosquitoes. So you want to make that whole hutch area, or any area, even if you've got a doggy door or a rabbit door for the rabbit to jump out outside, if they've got that safe area, safe from predators and safe from mosquitoes, because mosquitoes are nasty. So in that enclosed part of the hutch, I always recommend covering the floor part with newspaper and then put your bedding on top of that. And so that layer of bedding can be straw, it can be grass hay, it can be shredded paper. And what it does is actually provides your rabbit with lots of warmth, and it also provides cushioning to the little tootsies that are on the floor. So you want to make it nice and deep. It's really, really important that you keep this area clean and dry. So removing any bedding as it gets soiled, and this is not only going to stop flies, which can then cause nasty, nasty fly strike, but it also can help prevent the spread of other diseases. Lots of my friends, and I know a lot of you, are probably thinking of keeping your bunnies inside. And I have to admit, I absolutely love it. They'll still need a safe area where they can go to rest and to hide if they are a little bit uncertain about what's going on. And, some of them just love to go to their special area to have a snooze. And don't forget that bunnies absolutely love to chew. So if you're putting them in an area where they are going to have free roaming and maybe it's unsupervised, just make sure there's no access to power cords, because we don't want them to be electrocuted. That is horrific. You might have heard me just say before about the doggy door. Yes, some rabbits can actually be trained to use, the cat flap or the doggy door. And it's a really great idea, and it means they can come inside and outside as they wish. Just remember predators. So if you're going to do that, you need the area where they can access outside has to be really safe. So make sure that you've got netting, mesh, whatever it is out there, especially if they're not being supervised, because there'd be nothing worse than cats or dogs getting at your little bum-bum. Okay, let's talk about exercise. And it may seem really strange to you, but rabbits actually need heaps of exercise. And that's why they don't do well when they just keep inside a little hutch outside all the time without being let out. I find the easiest thing to do is to actually just let them out for some free time where they can hoon around in the backyard and play. Again, make sure there are no dogs, no cats, and they are all locked away before you do this, and supervise them. I know some of you, and have probably like me, seen people taking their rabbits for a walk on the lead. Yeah, really cool idea. I do worry though about, whether a dog or a cat is going to run out and grab them, because, hey, that's what dogs and cats do, and you cannot blame them for that. So just be really careful about where you're going to do that. Not all owners are, willing to keep their dogs and cats on a leash. I mean, you can't put a cat on a leash that might be just in a yard somewhere, and it might just see your rabbit and think, whoop, I'm going to have a bit of that. So just please, just be really, really mindful of where you're walking your rabbit, because you really don't want to have a bad accident. So just like our dogs and cats, bunnies love and need lots of enrichment for their mind. Pretty easy to do this because we can give them lots of toys. We can add hiding spots such as tunnels and cardboard boxes to their enclosure. You can stuff toys with food. You can have areas within the house or even, in their hutch where they might dig. So sometimes people use their kitty litter for that reason. It's actually there's lots of things you can do to help your rabbit enrich their mind. One of the best ways to do it is actually to hide little food treats. Now remember, treats can't make up very much of their diet, so be very careful with that, and you must never hide or restrict hay or your grass or anything, the high fiber parts of their diet. So just be very wary about what you're using for those treats. Make sure you don't give them too many, but a really good way of getting them keen and enriching their mind is to hide a little treat now and again. And on that note, what you feed your rabbit is absolutely vitally important. You've got to remember, rabbits are herbivores, meaning that they eat plant material, and high fiber grass and hay absolutely must make up 80% of their diet. And the remaining 20% should be leafy greens. I cannot stress enough how important hay is to your rabbit's diet. Firstly, the indigestible component, that is fiber, is absolutely crucial to the gut health of your rabbit's intestines. Secondly, the actual action of chewing and grinding that hay and those fibrous capsules of that hay actually works really well to grind down their teeth. Because remember, rabbit teeth constantly grow and they need to be ground down to make sure that they don't hit the other side of their jaw and cause nasty problems. Thirdly, rabbits that are deprived of appropriate hay will often start to, overgroom and ingest a lot of their own fur. Now, this predisposes them to hair balls. Hay also works well because what it does is it makes rabbits drink a lot more. And as we all know, rabbits are a little bit prone to bladder stones. So one of the ways to help prevent bladder stones is by drinking more water. So yay! Yay for hay! Okay, the best type of hay to feed your bunny is oaten hay. You'll see lots of people talking about meadow hay and timothy hay and maybe lucerne hay. And those are okay. Kind of leave the lucerne hay a bit though, because lucerne hay is actually really high in calcium and it's far too high for the majority of rabbits. The others aren't so bad, but why not just use oaten hay? It's easy to get. Just buy it. Okay, and what do we mean by feeding them lots of leafy greens? So that's vegetables like broccoli, spinach, Brussels sprouts, celery, and they just love it. So that should make up about 20% of the diet. So 80% hay, 20% leafy greens. Now, I know that some of you want to feed your rabbits treats, and some of you may even want to feed them a little bit of grain kibble, that sort of thing, the pellets. Some pellets are just like giving your rabbits lollies. And it's really important that you try not to let any of those pellets or any of the treats like carrots, anything sweet, you don't want to make that to be any more, like max out at 5% of their diet. So just try to really, really limit those to a small amount. And if you're trying to work out how much hay you actually do need to feed, what I like to think of is I look at my size of my rabbit and I basically give them the same size, good firm amount of hay. And then just watch them, make sure that they're not getting, feel their ribs, feel that they're not getting too porky. And of course you can ask your vet to see what they think as well when you go to have your rabbits health checked. Okay, grooming is really important with rabbits as well. And what that does, it helps reduce the amount of hair that they're actually ingesting, which can actually form horrible hairballs that then block the gastrointestinal system. Of course, this is likely to be more of a problem with those long-haired breeds. So what I recommend is that you brush them regularly. Every night you have a little cuddle with them and give them a bit of a brush. Also, when you're looking them over, look for things like lumps and bumps. You're looking for any sign of parasites, whether that might be ticks, it might be fleas, it could be other, mites or anything like that. Check under their tail, make sure that there's no big mats of feces because that puts them at high risk, especially if they're outdoor rabbits, of things like fly strike, which is really, really nasty. So you want to try and make sure that you're constantly looking at them, running your hands over them, giving them a brush, making sure that there's no abnormalities. I've actually got a handout below which you can look at, and that talks about the vital signs for different animals. And you might like to take a little look-see at that because then you can record all the vital signs for your rabbit and then you know when things might be a little amiss. The other thing, which is actually part of grooming, is their toenails. So you've also got to make sure that those don't get too long because that can get a little bit nasty. Not just for the rabbit who might get them caught in carpet or things like that, but also, like if they do push off you and put their toenails out, it can hurt. So it's always wise to get those trimmed. Now, if you're unsure on how to do that, head to your vet. The nurses there are always willing to help you and teach you how to cut their nails. So just like us and just like our cats and dogs, our rabbits need to have regular veterinary health exams. Well, we don't need a veterinary exam. Sometimes I do think that maybe vets might be better than doctors. I didn't say that. So when vets examine your rabbit, we like to do that yearly. Now, that's mainly because we want to do a health check, make sure they're all healthy, of course, but rabbits also need vaccinations, and those are a yearly vaccination. The other thing that I mentioned earlier was their teeth. So rabbit teeth continually grow. And so because they grow all the time, we've actually got to trim them and grind them down. And this is something that your vet will need to do. And it might be that they don't actually need it done every year, but they actually need to be checked yearly, just in case there is a tooth, coming down. Now, it is a little bit easier to tell with rabbits if they do need a dental. It's not quite like a cat or a dog who it's really hard to examine properly. So a lot of the times, your vet can actually tell with them in an exam room without actually sedating them. So always need to have a vet check at least once a year. So another problem that we see, sadly, quite often is actually cancer in undesexed females. And that's why I was so adamant that you need to desex your females. Females over the age of 3, if they haven't been desexed, the risk of uterine cancer is about 80%. Not very good at all. So, yep, definitely desex your rabbits because you're going to prolong their lifespan, which is only a good thing, isn't it? Also, I want to say that I did a tutorial with Dr. Bree a few years ago now, but I'll pop the link above and I'll put the link below as well. And it might pay to have a listen to that because she gives us some really great tips on caring for your rabbit, and I thought you might enjoy that. Alright then guys, if you've enjoyed this, make sure you give us the thumbs up, hit that notification bell so that you get notified of any future videos, and if you've got any suggestions, pop them down below because I'm always wanting to know what you'd like me to talk about, and hey, I might even get some guests on the show to give you even more information. All right then, guys, you have a great day. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.